Hi everyone, for those of you who don't know me, I used to stream true crime on Twitch. Thank you so much for the gift. And yeah, I had a scare cannon that was chat activated. It was pretty chaotic and I kind of miss it. Now instead I have my Rocky, my emotional support pup. Look at this baby, look at this baby, I love you. But anyways, I wanted a space where I could actually slow down, dig into the details, and tell these stories properly without jump scares nearly giving me a heart attack every 5 minutes. Not every day. So welcome to the YouTube version of my true crime brain. We're going to kick things off with a disturbing but unfortunately very common theme in true crime: police incompetence. We're going to be looking at 4 cases where police had the chance to prevent murder and they failed. And the consequences were deadly, obviously. Imagine for a second that it's 1991 and you see this on the news.
But the shocking, gruesome evidence came out in the middle of the night. The boxes with body parts inside, the refrigerator loaded with severed heads, the large barrel with acid inside. Evidence of what appears to be a psychopathic mass murder.
And then imagine finding out later that the police had a chance to stop this vicious killer before it got to this. It happened in Milwaukee in 1991. A 14-year-old boy named Conrack is seen wandering outside an apartment building, naked, bleeding, and apparently drugged out of his mind. Someone sees him and calls the cops.
I'm on 25th and State, and this is young man. He is butt naked. He has been beaten up. He is very bruised up. He needs some help.
But guess what the cops do? After they show up, Jeffrey Dahmer, yes, that Dahmer, comes out and tells them, "Oh, don't worry, that's my boyfriend. We just had a little fight and he's a little drunk." And the cops are like, "Oh, okay, then nothing to worry about here."
The intoxicated Asian naked male was returned to his sober boyfriend, and we're tonight.
And they literally escort the child back into Dahmer's apartment. I wish I was kidding. I wish this was satire. It literally sounds like a parody from Scary Movie where they make fun of obvious mistakes. But it's real life, and what Dahmer did to that boy is unimaginable. Earlier that night, Dahmer lured Conrack to his apartment, drugged him, and then drilled a hole into his skull and poured hydrochloric acid, attempting to lobotomize him. At some point of this gruesome torture, Conrack saw a chance and managed to escape. He ran, barely conscious and bleeding from his head, and stumbled out onto the street. Yet, after managing to escape that, the police walked him right back into Dahmer's apartment.
He didn't indicate that anything was wrong. He may have had some trouble walking due to the fact that he had been drinking, but he basically walked on his own and we just guided him. He showed no sign of any stress or didn't try to signal us or say anything to us. We felt the situation was fine.
And spoiler alert, Dahmer murdered that boy within hours. This 100% could have been avoided had the cops not been so neglectful.
Did you make any particular observations yourself of the Asian male?
He appeared to be intoxicated. He had no clothing on. He had a minor abrasion to his knee.
You couldn't have arrested him if you wanted to, correct?
No, that's correct.
How about the fact that Conrack was drunk, naked, and bleeding by his own admission? At the very least, they should have arrested him for indecent exposure or public intoxication. Neighbors had been calling in complaints about Dahmer's apartment for months, especially Glenda Cleveland, who called the police countless times to report suspicious behavior, but her warnings were ignored. There were literal smells of human decay coming out of his apartment, but the victims were mostly gay men of minorities. When they were initially reported missing, the cops didn't care to open any searches or investigations. Their blatant racism and homophobia created the conditions that allowed Dahmer to continue his killing spree.
What if he's a child and not an adult? I mean, are you positive this is an adult?
Ma'am, like I explained to you, it's all taken care of. It's as positive as I can be.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I can't do anything about somebody's sexual preferences in life.
Well, no, I'm not saying anything about that, but it appeared to have been a child. This is my concern.
No, he's not.
He's not a child.
No, he's not. Okay? And it's a boyfriend thing. And
it gets even worse. Those officers, the ones who returned Conrack to Jeffrey Dahmer the night he was murdered, they got fired after the public backlash, but just a few years later, they were reinstated with full back pay. That means that they were paid for all the time that they were off, as if they had never been fired at all. It's like a congrats on your vacation, boys.
Was there nothing that seemed abnormal about that, or?
All of this despite them literally sending a child back to his death. This one even became president of the Milwaukee Police Union. So yeah, they didn't save a child, they handed him to a serial killer, and then they still got promoted and awarded later in their careers. Make it make sense. The Conorak incident is the most infamous example of police mishandling in the Jeffrey Dahmer case, but there were several other moments where authorities failed to intervene or missed warning signs that could have stopped him earlier. For example, he had earlier arrests that didn't lead to further investigation. In 1988, 3 years before the assault and murder of Conorak, Dahmer was convicted of sexual assault of another minor, Conorak's older brother, Samsak, who was 13 at the time. Dahmer was sentenced to 1 year in a work release program and 5 years probation. Despite the seriousness of the crime, no deeper psychological evaluation was done, and his apartment was never searched at the time. A tragic consequence of systemic racism and white privilege, which allowed Dahmer to murder one of the brothers while on probation for molesting the other. So did Dahmer know that they're brothers? In the Netflix documentary Conversations with the Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tape, he claims to be surprised that 2 of his victims were brothers, but who knows if he's telling the truth. It's possible that out of spite of Samsak's escape, Dahmer later chose to target his younger brother. Samsak and Conorak's family had immigrated to the US as refugees in the late 70s in search of safety and a better life, but after everything they survived, their son was taken from them by a monster in the very place that they thought they'd finally be saved. The family filed a lawsuit against the city of Milwaukee in 1992. They reached a settlement of $850,000 in 1995. As for Dahmer, he was convicted of 15 murders in 1992 and sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms in prison. He was ultimately beaten to death by a fellow inmate 2 years later. This next case was dubbed the real-life Gone Girl at one point. Gone Girl is a movie with Rosamund Pike and Ben Affleck where a woman fakes her own disappearance to frame her husband. Let's see how this case was similar.
If you can imagine devoting all of our resources, 24 hours a day, on what I will classify as a wild goose chase. It's disappointing, it's disheartening.
So it's March 2015 in Vallejo, California. Denise Huskins is sleeping over at her boyfriend Aaron Quinn's house. Everything's chill until suddenly, late at night, a man breaks in, ties them up, and blindfolds them. He tells Aaron that he's going to take Denise and he'll be in touch with further instructions. He then gives Aaron a sedative and warns him not to contact the police or he'll hurt Denise. Then the kidnapper takes off in Aaron's car with Denise in it, and Aaron knocks out from the sedative. When he wakes up hours later, he gets an email from the kidnapper saying they want a $15,000 ransom for Denise, and Aaron wants to comply for her safety. Even though there's no guarantee that the kidnapper will uphold his end of the deal, Aaron doesn't want to take any chances. He calls his bank to try to get the money, but can only get $3,500 up front at the moment. He emails the kidnapper back saying he can only get that much right now, but we'll get the rest for him later. He didn't get any response back after that, and that's when Aaron calls 911 to report it. Now, let me tell you what should have happened. The police arrived, listened to Aaron's story, and used all their resources to try and rescue Denise, right? Nope. What they actually do is point their fingers at Aaron and immediately assume that he did something to Denise. Mind you, this man just had a hell of a night. His home was horrifically broken into and his girlfriend got kidnapped. He's a victim in this too, and then the cops do something so dumb it hurts. Aaron tells them that the kidnapper contacted him on his phone and he said he would be reaching out again, which is an important detail because, you know, maybe the cops can trace it. But what do the police do? They confiscate his phone and put it on airplane mode. Airplane mode. While the phone was in their custody, the kidnapper did in fact send a second email to Aaron and he tried to call as well. But because it was in airplane mode, it didn't receive the caller message in real time, and once it was finally seen, FBI agents were able to trace part of the communication, but the delay significantly limited what they could track. So yeah, they missed a chance to track the kidnapper in real time and take Aaron in for questioning. Like full-on interrogation room, bright lights, we know you did it vibes, and instead of a normal interview, it seems more like they're pressuring Aaron into a false confession. They begin with questions like, what was Denise doing over your house that day? And Aaron would give them honest, detailed answers in hopes of shedding light on something or anything that can help the cops in their search for Denise. So Aaron explains that Denise came over that night to talk about his ex-fiancée, Andrea Roberts. All three of them, Denise, Aaron, and Andrea, are physical therapists, and they all work in the same office. Denise found out that Aaron had been texting with Andrea about possibly getting back together. That's why she came over that night, so they can talk things out. It's a messy situation, but totally believable, and the lead detective on the case, Matthew Mustard, tells Aaron that the story seems far-fetched.
They did not come into your house and kidnap her and take her for ransom. So now I get out my puzzle pieces and I start figuring out, okay, how do I make it so you look like a monster? You want me to go tell her family that she's dead? Because that's what I'm prepared to do. I'm going to go tell them that I'm not looking for a live Denise. I'm looking for dead Denise.
Like, okay, Mr. Mustard, I completely understand not ruling out Aaron as a suspect, but time is such a crucial factor here, and they could have followed up on leads they were given instead of focusing all of their efforts on Aaron. They interrogated him for nearly 18 hours while ignoring key evidence that could have led police to her sooner. The FBI got involved and had Aaron take a lie detector test.
No question in my mind that you failed this test.
They told him he failed miserably.
And you failed it miserably. Not even close.
Which we later find out was not true. The results were actually inconclusive.
You know where she is.
I don't know where she is. I want you guys to find her.
Speaking of the FBI, we have another plot twist. Remember that messy work arrangement we talked about with Aaron and his ex-fiancée Andrea working together? Well, Andrea was now dating an FBI agent, and that same FBI agent, David Sesma, is the lead federal agent on the case and also tried to push the narrative that Aaron is guilty. Despite this very clear conflict of interest, Sesma remained on the case, and the request to have him removed was denied by higher authorities. So instead of actually doing some real investigating into this very real and very serious crime, this turns into some messy high school drama but in a federal agency. At some point while Aaron is still in police custody, a journalist at the San Francisco Chronicle received an email with an audio recording of Denise, allegedly sent from the kidnapper. In it, she says,
"My name is Denise Huskins, and I'm kidnapped. Otherwise, fine."
And she provides very specific personal details to prove she was alive and that the voice on the tape was actually her. But investigators find this suspicious because she sounds too calm to be in distress. They don't consider the fact that maybe she was drugged, just like what Aaron said they did to him. Instead, they pursue Aaron more intensely and start questioning Denise's family members as well. Denise's mom gives them as much info as she can about Denise, hoping it'll help the investigation. She tells them that Denise was molested as a child. And Mr. Mustard's response to this, he says, "Women who have been sexually assaulted often pretend that it happened again to relive the thrill of it. Disgusting." So now we're not just victim blaming, we're also weaponizing childhood trauma. So up to this point, the police had believed Aaron did something to Denise. But after hearing the audio recording, they begin to suspect that the kidnapping is a hoax. And then 2 days later, Denise returns.
He made the decision to release me. When he opened the car door, I thought, like, this is it. Either I'm gonna hear a gunshot and that's it, or I'm gonna get pushed off a cliff. And then I heard a door close behind me and I just started walking. And the only thing that I was thinking of was I want to see my mom and dad.
She was incredibly brave in sharing the details of what she went through in her captivity. In the documentary American Nightmare, she sits in front of the camera, visibly shaken. She recounts the experience with raw emotion, and it's clear how deeply traumatic and yet how powerfully resilient she was through it all. So let's pause for a second and talk about what she went through. Like Aaron, she describes being woken up in the middle of the night by an intruder and getting tied up, blindfolded with the goggles, drugged, and then kidnapped. During her captivity, she was held in a room with the goggles still on so she couldn't see anything, and classical music was playing constantly. She was told she was being monitored and that she was part of a larger mission involving multiple people. He made her believe she was caught in something bigger than just one person, like she'd been kidnapped by some elite organized group, which was not true. He wanted to create an illusion of a bigger operation to make the threat seem more powerful and to make Denise feel more hopeless. She was trying to survive, and she paid attention to all the details, like the rhythm of footsteps, the smell of the room, and even the temperature of the floor. And then she talks about the worst part. During those 48 hours, she was sexually assaulted multiple times, and he filmed it. He told her it was being recorded and that it was required as proof for whatever operation he was pretending to be a part of.
I shared with him something that happened when I was younger, hoping maybe that, knowing that I've already been assaulted, that he won't want to add to it, but you know, in jail. Yeah.
The fact that she could endure all of that, from the abduction to the sexual assault and psychological torment, then sit across from the Vallejo police only to be met with suspicion, disbelief, and humiliation is beyond infuriating. Denise actually provided some really specific and insightful details about her abductor that turned out to be 100% true. She told him that she thinks he is highly educated, has had some form of military training, and that he has PTSD and insomnia. And what did the police tell her? They told her she needed to come clean, and that they were offering her immunity if she tells them the truth. Immunity, like what you offer a criminal in exchange for a confession. That's when Denise was like, okay, I think I need a lawyer. Meanwhile, the police held a press conference and say she made the whole thing up.
The fact that we've essentially wasted all of these resources for really nothing is upsetting.
That's when they accuse her and Aaron of being the Gone Girl couple. The movie came out just 6 months before Denise's kidnapping, so the media ate it up since it was still fresh in everyone's minds, and it warped their judgment. She was publicly mocked and labeled a liar.
Public shaming was even more traumatizing and devastating for us than the kidnapping itself.
It is Mr. Quinn and Ms. Huskins that owes this community an apology.
And the guy who actually kidnapped her still out there walking free. So let's talk about how this case finally got solved. This part is wild, and it shows how basic police work, when done correctly, cracked the case that the Vallejo police completely fumbled. A few months after Denise's kidnapping, while she and Aaron were still dealing with the public scrutiny of the alleged hoax, the kidnapper tried to strike again in Dublin, California, which is an hour away from where Denise was kidnapped. It was an attempted home invasion, same MO, but this time the woman fights the guy off, he drops his phone, and the Dublin Police Department take a look at it. The phone is registered to a Matthew Muller, and in the phone, they found the videos of Denise that she told the cops about, the videos of her being raped. Matthew Muller was a former Marine, went to Harvard Law, he had a history of severe mental illness but was extremely intelligent and calculated, which is what Denise told the police. She literally profiled him better than the detectives. It gets even crazier, because it turns out this guy is not a one-time offender. He was a full-blown stalker with a long history. See, Denise was taken from Muir Island, which is a little residential neighborhood in Vallejo. Residents there had already made several reports about a suspicious man who had been prowling the neighborhood for months. They were hearing strange noises at night and noticing someone lurking around their homes. People were calling him the Muir Island Creeper. And what did the Vallejo police do with all of these reports? Nothing. Well, they said they would look into it, but clearly they never did anything. So what did the residents do? They took matters into their own hands. They literally started their own neighborhood watch. They logged dates and times. Someone even followed him home one night after seeing him lurking in the neighborhood, and it turned out he lived on Muir Island. And if the cops didn't take Aaron's phone and put it in airplane mode, they could have traced the calls and found Denise immediately.
The kidnappers have already called 3 times.
I would have been rescued.
Of course, residents gave all of this info to the Vallejo police. Descriptions, time frames, even license plate info in some cases. It shows how everyday people did more investigative work than the actual police. All the cops had to do was follow up on any one of those early Muir Island reports, and they might have stopped Muller before Denise was ever taken. Eventually, Muller was arrested and pled guilty to federal kidnapping charges. He's currently serving 40 years in prison. So yeah, the cops botched the case, humiliated a victim, missed their chance to stop a serial offender, and never took any real accountability for it, until Denise and Aaron fought back. They sued the Vallejo Police Department and won a $2.5 million settlement, which is good, but also money doesn't fix trauma, or public humiliation, or being called a liar on national news while your kidnapper is still out there and walking free. But at least the settlement validates their claims that they were victimized not only by the kidnapper and assaulter, but also by the system. I know I said we'd be covering 4 cases in this video, but once I started diving into the details, I realized there's way too much to cram it all into one video. So consider this part 1, and honestly, with how many stories there are like this, where police incompetence allow dangerous people to keep hurting others, this might just turn into an ongoing series. In part 2, I'll be breaking down the next case, the Gilgo Beach murders, which is one of the biggest serial killer cases of our time, and it's far from over. Also, this was my first video, so if there's anything you think I could do differently or better next time, please let me know. I'd love the feedback. You can be honest. And let me know if there's any cases or topics in particular you'd like me to cover. I know true crime stories can sometimes seem exploitative, but when done appropriately, I think they're important to discuss because so many of them highlight serious issues in law enforcement, like racism or misogyny, and by discussing them, people can better understand where things go wrong and why they keep happening. And in general, I think learning about true crime helps people to be more aware in their everyday lives and spot red flags in dangerous situations. So that's all for now. I'll see you in part 2, and like and subscribe so you don't miss it. And so you don't miss Rocky either.